Oh, messy hair again. Did you like how I roll my Aronde in more practice? Anyway, this is my Fortex Aronde awning, and this thing is a very exclusive club of awnings, I'll have you know. Anyway, Fortex is a little company based in the Netherlands, and they hand make all their awnings, and they especially make one for these things. So this is an Eriba Feeling, for those of you that don't know already. This is a Feeling 425 with a pop top roof bed. I have a king size bed upstairs. Anyway, that's a totally different topic. So the difficulty with these sort of caravans is they don't take standard caravan awnings, because the rail is at about 2 meters high, not the normal 230, 240, that sort of height. So it is a bit of a pain to find an awning. Now, a lot of drive-away awnings fit height-wise perfectly, because actually the rail here is a very similar height to the rail on a VW camper van. So if you've got a Ford Transit Connect or a little VW T60 6.1, you know, that sort of height, then those awnings fit on Eribas. Sometimes you get a bit of a problem with the door opening, brushing on the ceiling, but that's not a major issue most of the time. But one of the problems with drive-away awnings is that they can be very deep on the pitch. So if you've got your caravan this is 2 meters 17, apparently, including all the mud flaps and wheel arches and all the rest of it, and then you've got a huge awning on the side, and some of these drive-aways are a meter tunnel plus then a 3 meter awning. So, you know, you're 6 meters 17, which you can get away with, thank you very much Caravan and Motorhome Club, because you build decent sized pitches. So you can get away with that on most Caravan and Motorhome Club sites, but you can't get away with it on camping and caravanning club sites, or by extension camping in the forest sites, because those are joint ventures with the camping and caravanning club. Anyway, if you want to stay on those club sites, the camping and caravanning club limits pitches to 8 meters by 5 meters. And so if you've got 4 meters of awning and 2 meters of caravan, even though it's a very diddy little caravan, you ain't going to fit on their pitches. And that is an absolute pain in the neck. So if you do own an Eriba, be very careful what awning you buy, especially if you're new to this game and think that any old awning will do. Then trust me, they don't. Even with our short awning, I'll put a little couple of pictures in here. I'll show that the 2 times, yeah, we've stayed twice on camping and caravanning club sites, and neither time we've actually fitted on the pitch. Yeah, anyway, I had a long lecture about being parked on the grass. A little bit on the grass. I managed to get us down to that much, but for goodness sake. Anyway, that is another video. We'll get to that. So this time I want to talk about this Fortex Aronde, and in fact you can see we were still pitched on the grass with this one when we were at Keswick. But this video is about the awning rather than diminutive pitch sizes for diminutive caravans. So this was one of the first purchases we made after buying the caravan, because I'd come from a folding camper where we had a massive full awning, and boy, we use a lot of awning space. You know, with a family in a tiny caravan, awning space is really important actually. So we end up with a small caravan but using an awning most of the time, because otherwise it's just impractical. So I had it in my head that of course we required a full awning. Now, as it's worked out, we've used the full awning not very much at all. So I think it's been out 4 times now, possibly 5, you know, in the 5 and a bit years that we've owned this caravan. So that's quite embarrassing really. So I guess a top tip at the beginning of this video is, if you're not quite sure if you're going to use an awning or not, or you've no previous experience, just use the caravan first a few times before you work out whether you need to spend thousands of pounds on a full awning. You can thank me later. Anyway, that's a general piece of advice. That's not to detract from how beautiful and well made this awning is. So let's go and look at the awning itself. Anyway, awning choices for pop-tops are fairly limited, as I said earlier, to drive-away awnings. Of course, Camper make the Pop Air nowadays. It wasn't out when I bought this one, but they brought it out a year or so later. And by all reviews by others, that seems pretty good apparently. And I personally, looking at it, I like that it's modular, because you can put a sunshade on the front, and these days you can have even a sleeping pod on each side, which is very practical indeed. So I like that. I'd probably go for that if we didn't have what we had already. However, this Aronde is massive, which is wonderful if you're staying for a long time. Now, before we go any further, let us deal with the elephant in the room here, and that is cost, of course. You know, this is a bespoke awning that is made by hand to order using very nice materials, so 10 Kate, yes, using 10 Kate canvas and so on. So we are at least in Isabella territory here. I don't think it's that much more than Isabella. It's probably comparable, and I imagine the quality and the build process and so on are very similar. So that is the territory in. This is certainly not a cheap option. I think we paid £2,000 for the main awning itself, including all the aluminium poles and the front sunshade thing and all of it, and then it was another £590 for the sleeping annex that sticks out the side. So similar sort of money to Isabella, maybe a touch more, but that sort of ballpark. And the fees do include the full awning, the short removable sunshade, the bespoke draft skirt and the wheel arch cover, all the storm straps and everything else that you need, and loads of really beefy rock pegs, as well as all the options to choose the body colour that you want, so whether you want dark grey or light grey, or whether you want an accent colour so you can have a different colour going across the arch. And some of the Eribas that have, for example, yellow features on them, or purple or blue or something, people have a coloured strip around the arch to match up with their Eriba, and that looks really smart. Now, our Eriba is white and grey, therefore we just went with a grey awning with some black highlights and so on. So you can also choose to have your mud flaps fixed and sewn in like we've got, or you can have them velcroed on, or in fact you can buy a tub ground sheet, non-breathable, so you get told off in most places, I would have thought, when you use it, but a tub ground sheet that completely seals it in and then velcros around the edge of the awning. So I mean, that would be fantastic if you're off skiing or something like that. That said, they make specific winter porch awnings which are made of much thicker fabric, so maybe that's not the skiing option. But anyway, you can have a tub ground sheet if you want a tub ground sheet. I've got the ordinary mud flaps. You can also, when I specified ours, you could have double mud flaps, so you could have flaps outside and inside, so that would completely cut out all the drafts and all sorts of things, wouldn't it? You can also choose different fronts, so you can have one door and a small window on one side and a massive window on the other side, or you can have it completely symmetrical, which we've done, with a smaller window and a door. So we've got a door on each side of the front. Now, the other elephant in the room for us Brits, of course, is Brexit. Anyway, I bought this before all the rules and regulations and crazy amounts of paperwork. I thought we were supposed to be getting away from paperwork. Anyway, before paperwork and customs checks and all that sort of jazz came in. So it was a very smooth, very easy process, you know, just like buying from any supplier who happens to be a few hundred miles away. Anyway, nowadays that might be completely different. So I may indeed just be talking to our European friends and neighbours, and in which case, ciao, moin, bonjour, etc. Nice to see you folks. Thanks for tuning in. Anyway, so these things are handmade to order, so you just make your order based on what colour you want and what options you want on it. And by the way, Frank, who runs the company, emails in excellent English, thousands of times better than my Dutch. So thank you very much, Frank. That was very helpful to sort out a few questions I had. Now, Fortex make 3 main models of awnings and a winter porch, as I mentioned. The Circum and the Ventata, both of which have square side panels, so they look fairly conventional. That was not the one that floated my boat. This one was, the Aronde. So the Aronde did it for me because of these funky quadrant windows on the sides. And yep, that was exactly what attracted me to it. So that funky side panel and the fact that at the time the only camper van awnings that were available were massively deep, and so I wasn't going to fit on pitches anywhere despite having a small caravan. So that was kind of the thing that hurried me up towards a full awning, rather than spending the time thinking about whether we actually needed one or not. So the downside of these funky windows, of course, is that only about half the side completely zips out. So compared to the other models of awnings, then when you're putting it in just as a canopy, then it's a tiny bit heavier than it would otherwise be with those square windows. So let's have a little time lapse and watch this thing going up. So just to explain while we're watching this, the whole concept is a set of arches that are tensioned against each other. And because ours is a pop top, That includes a rear arch in our awning, so that rear arch sits over the caravan and it gives us a perfectly normal awning height inside despite a short caravan. And of course there's a rear infill panel that joins the caravan with the higher arch at the back there. So in theory ours would stand up completely on its own because there's nothing resting on the caravan itself. It doesn't have to pull against the caravan to stay up. So personally I've got a bit of a problem tensioning the central roof pole because we've only got a low caravan, which means we've only got a single short step, which in turn means that I, as a short arse, cannot reach the pole in the middle to tension it once the front arch is at its proper height. So usually the front arch can be set low and I can tension it and then we can push it up again. But I very much doubt that that is a problem that the university tall Dutch designers have thought about. 5-foot British women. So if you're not much more than 5 foot, like some of us, you'll probably need to think about carrying around a bigger step, or much more carefully think about the order in which you put things up so you can get that tension across the middle before you raise the front arch to its proper height. I'm sure everything is doable, just not something that very tall Dutch designers have to worry about being short-arsed. But then they probably, why on earth do they buy pop-top caravans if that's the case? Because they're quite short inside sometimes. Anyway, that is a mystery of the universe. Or in my case, rather than bringing a ladder, you can see that you just come equipped with a reasonably short but very long-armed man, or indeed woman, whichever you prefer. Just bring that person of your dreams with you when you come to use this particular awning. So vertical challenges aside, this awning should be easier to erect than a standard one because of those interlocking poles and the fact that it takes its own tension and it becomes freestanding pretty quickly. And because the tensioning poles across the roof lock between the rear arch and the front arch, that should mean there's much less chance of something coming loose and scratching the caravan, because the way in which this tensioning pole across the middle clips in is actually a T-joint. So there's a T-joint at that end and a T-joint at that end, and then the tensioning pole goes between the two of those. So, you know, with that much metal interlocking at both ends, there's very little chance of anything coming loose in any storms. So as you can see here, the entire front wall zips out, so it also works very well as a canopy, a big heavy canopy, but nevertheless a canopy. And we've got the front central pole in here because this picture was actually taken when we were packing down after we've had the whole front extension on. So the only time you need that front pole is when you've got the front extension on to take the extra weight of the extra canvas. And this is quite a good photo to also point out the built-in mesh ventilation panels. The windows themselves are sewn in, but these can be left permanently open if you've got that front sunshade on, because they're completely protected from the rain if that's the case. So also note the traditional Dutch way of doing privacy with the zip-on closed blinds on the outside rather than fussy curtains on the inside. And originally having been driven absolutely potty by a set of Isabella curtains on our folding camper, because of course Isabella made all the canvas for the folding camper itself and the awning extension, and the curtains there were on individual little aluminium poles which you had to slot into hanging loops, and by God they drove us bonkers, because every time you tried to close the curtain, of course the whole aluminium thing fell down. I think stayed where it was supposed to stay. It was a good way of doing it on paper, but in real life it's an absolute pain in the... Anyway, after that curtains experience, we decided we did not want curtains inside our awning. We decided they were far too fussy and they didn't work anyway, and they just led to much shouting and swearing. So we were happy to go with the traditional Dutch way of closing your blinds. But after 4 or 5 uses, I have to say, I think I've gone back to the curtains idea, because having blinds on the outside in the lovely UK summer weather means I've got soaked in rain more times than I care to mention when I've been closing the blinds, because sometimes at night, you know, you don't want to be having your lighting on in your awning and having everybody see in, do you? So yeah, I'd go with curtains. I think that was an option when we ordered ours. I'm not sure if it still is, but curtains are the way forward. I guess the positive side of having the blinds on the outside is it does look very smart and it is very neat and tidy and it's not fussy at all. But actually using the things is a pain in the neck in the UK because of all the rain. If you only go somewhere hot, I suspect this is far superior, because actually you can shade that plastic window, which means you get far less heat into the awning itself. So horses for courses. If you spend your summers in the south of France, like some people we know, then this might be the perfect solution. If you're in the UK, in very nasty rainy weather, go for curtains on the inside. So one problem we've had is leaking between the awning wall and the wall of the caravan. So water seems to get stuck in the awning rail, so that where the kedar strip goes in, and just seems to come straight through there. It's not as bad in this awning as it has been in one of our driveaways, possibly both. Anyway, I've done a video already on the Fiamma drip strip that I fitted to try and deal with that. And if you've got an ordinary Eriba, then of course you can buy a gutter strip that clips on the top of your awning rail and then provides a channel to help channel the water away, to keep it away from going in the awning. So if you've got an ordinary Eriba touring, then hopefully that will sort it out pretty quickly. So I don't think it's a design issue with the awning itself, because we seem to have this problem with multiple awnings, but it's a sort of problem waiting to happen really, because the back wall of the awning, so the bit that seals the gap between the caravan and that higher arch of the awning itself, so that's made of the same completely waterproof fabric as the mud flaps and the draft skirt and so on. And there is an extra flap up there, so it sits on top of the awning channel. It's supposed to create an extra sort of gutter for the rain to go down through, but you know, as you know, water will find a way, and the flap doesn't go fully to the ends as well because of the shape of that arch, and there's no way of pushing it flat really. So once you've got the awning up, you might not have the flap in the right place anyway, you're just relying on it falling into position. Anyway, it's not a great solution, so hopefully designers can evolve that a little bit. I'm not quite sure how they might do that though. Right, what else to show you? Yes, so there are some photos I've got of the annex on the side here. Now, I've only actually put this up once in Keswick, and as you can see, we were somewhat tight for space because it is a camping and caravanning club site, which only have 5 metre wide pitches. Eventually, I'll get around to making a video on our thoughts on camping and caravanning club versus caravan and motorhome club, because we've been members of both for ages now. Anyway, I can talk about our usage of both of those, and in case that helps anybody who's trying to make that decision, because there's always that question on the groups, isn't there? So unfortunately, these are the only images though that I've got of the annex up. This is an extra deep one, and it was made at exactly the same time as the main part of the awning, so exactly the same fabric. It zips in, and the lovely Frank at Fortex added 2 sets of zips for me. So he added zips on both ends, so I could put the annex on either the left end or the right end, because you know, if one of the kids are going to sleep out there, well, it's big enough for both of them, but they won't share. Anyway, so if somebody's going to sleep out there, I don't want them on the road end. You know, I want them at the opposite side, as far away from the road and fumes and noise as possible. And sometimes we have to pitch nose in which case the annex would need to go on the nose end, and other times we're able to pitch normally with the A-frame out to the road, and in that case I'd like the annex on the back. So thank you very much to Frank for making that happen, and I don't think he charged me any extra for that as well. It was just a couple of zips, but still, it's very much appreciated. It makes life much easier to have that flexibility. So I guess the other thing you noticed in the pictures was that I put it up in a bit of a hurry, so it's not perfectly pitched. Do forgive that, because it was quite cold and dark out there, but I wanted to test out the annex to make sure it was good, and you can see some pictures of the inside here. The other thing you can see on the outside here is also these permanent bits of rain-safe ventilation panels. So that means that annex is permanently ventilated as well, which is great. But there's no chance of any bugs coming in the window, or certainly any rain, because of that very deep, nice hood over the top that protects that really, really well. In case you're wondering about that water and power bollard, it does look a bit tight on this particular angle, but as you can see here, there is a bit of space between the awning front and the bollard, but only just. So in terms of assembly, the videos that the company themselves have put online suggest doing the back arch first and then working your way forward. Mike and I have actually done it both ways. So we started off doing it the instructional way with the back arch first, but actually recently we've done the front arch and left that on an angle, and this only works of course if it's not blowing a gale, otherwise the whole lot ends up going up there. If it is blowing a gale, don't put an awning up, have a cup of tea instead. Anyway, so we've put the front arch up, and having already put the rear arch on the ground, so then we can, as long as we haven't got the poles in the way, then we can flip the rear arch up into place. And that's a lot more pleasant in sort of human terms, because you're not squashed under a load of fabric covering your head for ages. So yeah, that, you know, try it different ways. I think it will work either way. I think we'll probably go with the front arch up first next time again. It does take a little bit more jiggling to make sure you've got everything in the right place, because once you've put the arch into position, then the poles actually zip in, so you need to do the zip up all the way around, making sure you've got the T-pieces, the connectors for the tensioning rods, out through the appropriate holes, and then just, you know, square the whole thing off and make sure your fabric's nice and taut. So we did it with the back arch up first when we put it up on the drive. Don't worry, our neighbours are used to our antics by now. Anyway, we've mostly put it up on the drive to have a little bit of a practice, because who wants to make a fool of themselves in front of everybody? But yeah, we used the front pole technique at Rooksbury last year. So conclusions, it is a very well made awning. It is beautifully made, it's made from lovely materials, and it's really light and airy when it is up. It of course weighs quite a lot, no more than any other awning of this size. It has 28mm aluminium poles, and the good thing, of course, because all those sections zip out, then you can just take it all to pieces, so you don't have to lug the entire bag with everything around in. Quite often, if I'm getting it ready, then I'll bring things out, you know, a couple of panels at a time, which means lots of trips, but at least each bit is much lighter, so much easier to carry around. So that's a benefit over an air awning. You know, those things can be really, really heavy, because you've got everything in one package, and you've got your air tubes and, you know, the multiple layers of fabric over the top to protect the tubes themselves. So although the package as a whole might weigh slightly less, you can't separate it out, so it makes it much more difficult to manage and to handle, and to get the thing into the rail and all the rest of it. So it is very pricey, you know. It's in Isabella territory, at least. You know, there might be a few £100s in it, so compared to Isabella quality, I would have thought you could be getting exactly the same sort of thing for the same sort of price. But you can specify colours, you can specify different highlights that you want on it, and the accessories you do or don't want. One thing I would love to do actually is feature some of the Isabella options on this page, because those have been increasing recently for pop top caravans. So if you happen to be watching this and you work for Isabella, there's some contact details below. I would absolutely love to showcase to the audience what things are available for Eribas from you guys. So do get in touch. Anyway, that's my pitch. Right. So the other thing to be aware of course, in costings is Brexit nowadays, because these things are not brought in as standard. There's customs charges and export charges and so on. Now, in theory, because it's over this €150, £135 limit, you shouldn't be paying VAT in the Netherlands, but you will have to pay VAT when it lands in the UK, as well as the export charges and all the rest of it. So if you're thinking of ordering one from the UK, be very, very careful indeed what you might be getting yourself in for. Some people might say this suggests that others might go off to the Netherlands, buy their awning, try it out for a couple of weeks, and come back with a mucky awning through customs and not declare it. But that would be illegal, wouldn't it? So I couldn't possibly condone such a thing. Anyway, sad times, because that means there's less choice for UK consumers, which is not good, is it? No. Anyway, on that note, I hope I've covered everything I need to cover in the video. Do ask any questions or put any comments below if there's anything you want to ask me as an owner of one of these things. And thanks for watching. Do the usual thumbs up, subscribe, press the bell icons, all that sort of jazz. That would be very much appreciated. And thanks for tuning in. So I'll catch you next time. Bye for now. See ya.